friends, welcome to Meals with Maria. Today I have more poor man's meals for you. I know that many of you actually found me through my poor man meal video. It was a great success. Everybody seems to love these budget swaps and these alternative ways to make things that are generally more expensive. So I scoured the internet and I found more recipes that are poor man's recipes. That's what they're labeled. They're each poor man version of something that you may otherwise have that again would be more expensive. I'm so excited to share them with you, so let's check them out. This recipe is simply named Poor Man's Meal. It is as easy as it gets and it is super delicious. You want to start with 1 pound of ground beef or ground turkey, whatever you have. You can see my manager special sticker on mine, so I got mine on sale, popped that in my freezer, and I was ready to go. Season your beef with salt, and then I'm using a Trader Joe's seasoning blend, but you can use whatever your favorite seasonal salt is. When the meat is cooked through thoroughly, remove it from the heat and set it aside in a separate dish. And then I'm going to use the same pan and add a few tablespoons of oil, whatever oil that you have on hand will do. And we are going to add in, it says 7 cups of frozen hash brown potatoes, but I had maybe like 2 cups of them in my freezer, and we were going to go real poor man style. So I decided we would just use what we had and just cut down on the potatoes, and I think it would be plenty of food for us anyway. So I just used the rest of what I had. You want to cook these until the potatoes are light and crispy, turning them halfway through for about 10 minutes so you can see they're getting that golden brown color on them. Once the potatoes are fully cooked to your liking, you can sprinkle a little more salt and pepper on if you'd like. Add your ground beef back to your skillet, as well as 1 drained can of corn. And that is the basis for this meal. We're going to saute this for a couple of minutes to make sure everything is warmed all the way through. And I topped mine with a little bit of shredded mozzarella cheese because that's what I had in my refrigerator, but you can use any type of cheese that you like or that you have. The recipe actually recommends cheddar, so if you have that, go ahead and use that. But the cheese on top really makes it extra special, and then I happen to have some scallions, so I cut those up and put those on there too. I think that if you had like a fresh onion when you first started cooking that beef, it would taste really good in this skillet as well. So you can see that working with what you have, those potatoes that I had only a couple of cups, still makes this a delicious and hearty meal. This was plenty for our family. We were so pleased. The kids loved it. Not that we even needed it, but I served it with some frozen peas and some Texas toast, and this was absolutely fabulous. And when I say that the kids loved it, Ben was a huge fan. He was just shoving it in his mouth. Don't mind our camping stuff behind him, but he loved it. This next recipe is for a poor man's spicy tuna roll, and who doesn't sometimes crave sushi, but gee, it is expensive. So this is an amazing recipe. You want to start off by making some sushi rice, and in order to do that, you want to use a rice cooker if you can. You can also just follow the instructions on the back of the package and cook it on the stove, but I'm using a rice cooker. I'm adding 2 cups of rice to my rice cooker and then just covering it a little bit with water. You just want to make sure that it's fully covered with water and then setting it to the rice setting, and it will cook for you just fine. So to make this sushi rice, there is kind of a more fancy way to do it, but I didn't read the recipe very well as usual, and we're going to do it a little differently. So my way of doing it is to take your warm rice, and then you want to add in a 1/4 cup of rice wine vinegar, then mix that all around, then 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar, and 1 teaspoon of salt. And the recipe I'll have also says to add like some dashi, kombu dashi, which I didn't have. So, hey, we're just going to use the ingredients that we have, things that people normally have on hand. So rice vinegar, sugar, salt, mix it all around. And this does taste like sushi rice. It's crazy. Like I didn't even realize sushi rice had a flavor until I tasted this versus when it didn't have it on it. And I was like, okay, I get it. It's delicious. For the tuna roll filling, you want to finely slice up 2 tablespoons of scallions. Drain 1 5-ounce can of tuna and add it to a bowl. Add in your scallions. Then you want a 1/2 teaspoon of chili oil, or in my case, I just use regular oil because I didn't want it to be any spicier than it was already going to be, as well as a 1/2 teaspoon of rice wine vinegar, 1.5 tablespoons of mayonnaise, and 1 tablespoon of sriracha. Mix the filling well and then set aside. Now the recipe says to place a sheet of nori, or that's your sheet of seaweed, on top of a bamboo mat, which is like a sushi roller, but I don't have that. So I actually just used my baking mat, and I have tried this before and it works pretty well. So not a problem. If you don't have a sushi roller, go ahead and use a baking mat if you have one. I think you could even use like a parchment paper, and it may be a little bit more difficult, but I think you can make it work. You want to have a small bowl of water next to the, sushi rolling set or wherever you are, and you want to wet your fingers and then place a 1/4 cup of rice onto the seaweed. And then you want to take wet fingers and kind of spread that rice over 3/4 of the sheet. And you can see that I'm moving mine because I realized that I had it the wrong way. You actually want the shorter way to be the way that you're rolling the roll. So trial and error here. And if you make this and you're like, wow, that turned out, not great for sushi. Sushi's one of those things that it just takes time and just takes practice and effort. I haven't done it in years, so I was like, I think I can do this. And the truth is, all the ingredients are still the same, so it's still going to taste good no matter what shape or size that it is. You really just want to make sure that you get a thin layer of rice covering 3/4 of your nori, and then you're going to be all set to add in your filling. And you just want to add the tuna filling right down the middle of the rice. Then you want to roll up your bamboo mat, or your cookie mat in my case, and roll it tight enough so that the rice feels condensed and tight. You want to start on the side with the rice and the spicy tuna, and you do want to make sure that it's not so tight that the tuna mixture actually spills completely out the sides, because you could really squeeze it basically. So we're not going to squeeze it, and we don't want the sheet of nori to break, but you just want to do it tight enough. So this is something that takes a little bit of practice. Play around with it, see how it feels, and after doing it a couple times, you're going to get the hang of it. You just want to roll it and, think sushi roll, and you'll figure it out. Then you want to wet your fingers and run that across the inside edge of your nori sheet. And this is basically going to close it like an envelope, and it's going to stick it together and seal the roll. Have a wet cloth nearby, and then use a sharp knife to cut the roll into bite-sized pieces. And in between each time that you cut, you're going to want to try and use that wet cloth. And I found that at first I was like, oh no, this is fine, I don't need that. And I realized it was really kind of sticking, and so using that wet cloth to wipe it off did make a difference. And at this point, I felt like a real sushi chef, just moving my 8 pieces of sushi off to the side to make more. And although it's redundant, I do want to show you making this second roll so that you can see the technique one more time. And here is the beautiful poor man sushi, and I'll tell you, I did not feel like a poor man eating this at all. It was absolutely fabulous, so delicious. I just made some rolls for myself in this case, but you can make as many as you want. Once you buy those nori sheets, you made up plenty of rice by making that recipe, and there is at least 2 to 3 more rolls worth of the tuna mixture. And that tuna mixture is delicious as is, so if you don't even want to do a full sushi thing like this, you can just make a bowl of that sushi rice, crush up some of that nori, and then put the tuna on top, and that would be delicious as well. This next recipe is for a poor man's burrito bowl, and this is for when you are craving Chipotle, but you just don't have the cash for that Chipotle price tag. You want to start by cooking up some rice according to your liking. You can just follow the instructions in the back of the bag. And then you're going to take 1 or 2 cans of black beans, depending on how much you want to make. And then a half a teaspoon each of garlic powder and cumin. And just heat those until your beans are fully cooked through. The rest of this is purely assembly. Add in a cup of rice to the bottom of a bowl, followed by a half a cup of your cooked black beans, 1/4 cup of salsa, whatever your favorite kind is, whatever the cheapest is. Also, if you don't have salsa, that's going to be totally fine. Just use a hot sauce. I've done this with hot sauce many times and it's still delicious. Whatever you have in your cabinet will do. Then I had some cheddar cheese and I'm just grating that over. So whatever your favorite type of cheese is or whatever type of cheese you have on hand, you just want a sprinkle of that. And you're going to top it off with something spicy if you like it, a little bit of jalapenos. These happen to be from Dollar Tree, so they're super inexpensive. You just top that off with that. That's a beautiful little garnish, and it is that simple. The flavor on those beans with the rice and your, whatever you're using for spicy stuff, your hot sauce or your salsa, on their own are absolutely delicious, and this makes this so inexpensive, so easy to eat, and you do feel like you're at a restaurant because you can order one of these at Chipotle for like $10. So let's make it much cheaper and make it at home. I want to thank you for being here today. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. If you haven't already, consider it. I am making 3 budget videos a week, and if you subscribe, they are much more likely to show up in your feed. If you want to see more poor man's meals, I do have a whole other video on this with some amazing recipe ideas. Go ahead and click right here, and I'll see you all very soon.